Hey guys, what's up? It's me, the-kyle-chronicles, and I am finally back with a new episode to my sexual and health education series, Smarter Sex Stuff. If you don't know what that is, well, like I just said, it's my sex education series I started because it's way more inclusive than what you learned in school, as in I'll be teaching you guys about stuff for non-straight people as well as straight people, since you definitely don't learn about the first part of that in school. Yeah, I know some of you guys don't have sex education where you are, or it's like really shit, so that's what this is here for. If you want to see all the other parts of this I've made, they're all in a playlist titled Smarter Sex Stuff. And yeah, you can start from the beginning, or if you already understand certain topics, you can go to whichever video you want. But today we're covering emergency contraceptives. The most common phrase you've heard for this is the morning after pill or Plan B. And yeah, we'll get right into it. There are 4 different kinds I'll be going over, and in the little description box I'll leave timestamps for you to figure out when each different thing. Yeah, so we'll start with number 1, which is the copper IUD. If you don't know what an IUD is, it is an intrauterine device, and I've actually gone over what they are in a birth control video, which is in the playlist, so you can just head on over there if you want to learn more about that. But it can also be used as an emergency contraceptive, and it is the most effective. It is 99% effective if you get it inserted up to 7 days after unprotected vaginal intercourse. Now, obviously, if you don't have a vagina or the ability to get pregnant, none of these are really useful for you, but it's still useful information to know. So yeah, that's 99% effective. It's the most recommended. It prevents a pregnancy by the copper ions prevent fertilization and implantation of the sperm in the egg and the egg in the wall. Yeah. Advantages to this one: it can be an ongoing contraceptive method for 5 to 10 years. I think it just depends what kind you get for the life expectancy of it. Again, long-term contraceptive. For some people that's really great. And fertility returns after IUD removal. I'm not 100% sure if it returns as soon as you have it out, but it does return. The disadvantages to this one: it must be administered by a healthcare professional. It can be costly. I'm not too sure of the prices or how insurance works with it. That's probably dependent on where you live. And it does not protect against STIs, which none of these do, because they are all emergency contraceptives that you take after you've had either unprotected sex or a condom has broken, etc., etc. So none of these will protect you against STIs. And that is the first one. As always, I'm going to leave more information about each type in the description. They'll all be in one link. It's a nice fact sheet I found about them, so please feel free to check that out if you do want to look more into these methods. Method number 2 is the, excuse my pronunciation, Ulipristal acetate pill. I hope I pronounced that right. This is the second most effective. It is 60% effective when taking up to 120 hours, that is 5 days, after unprotected vaginal sex. So, I'm assuming once you pass that 120 hour mark, the effectiveness does go downhill pretty quickly. This one delays the release of an egg before ovulation. So if you are already pregnant, this cannot end a pregnancy, because that's not what it's built for. It is built to delay the egg release. Advantages for this one: it is slightly more effective than another kind of pill that we'll be talking about after, that I will probably wrongly pronounce for you. Disadvantages are: it requires a prescription. It can be costly. Again, depends on where you live, what kind of insurance coverage you have. and it may be less effective in people who weigh more than 75 kilograms, which is 165 pounds. It can still work, it just, the more over that weight you are, the less effective it will be. And this one, the more common names are Ella-1, Ella, Esmia, and this one can also be used to treat uterine fibroids, which can be a bonus for you depending on if you have that and if this is a treatment your doctor has already talked about. So number 3 is the Progestin Pill. This one is 50% effective if taken after 72 hours, which is 3 days, after having unprotected vaginal sex. The effectiveness decreases over time, but the max for this is it may be taken up to 120 hours, which is 5 days after the unprotected sex. So it's highly suggested to take it within the first 3 days, but if you get it on the 4th or 5th day, it might still work, although the effectiveness has decreased. This one delays the release of an egg if taken up to 8 hours before ovulation. And again, it cannot end a pregnancy because it's just there to stop the release of an egg. The advantages to this one, you do not need a prescription to get this. It can be purchased in advance, so you have it when you need it. So this one you could buy, I'm assuming like a pack of, and you can have it next to your bed or with you in your bag, purse, pocket, wherever you may keep it, so that if a condom breaks or if something happens and you're worried about becoming pregnant, you can already have it on hand to take. Disadvantages are the same as the previous one, so it can be costly, and it may be less effective in you if you are over 75 kilograms, which is 165 pounds. This one is also more commonly referred to as the morning after pill. Plan B, Contingency 1, Option 2, and Norlevo. So if you've seen any of those on like the shelves at a pharmacy, that is what this pill is. And finally, the last method, which again, I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing it, is the Yuzpe method. So that's Y-U-Z-P-E method. This is the least effective of all 4. It is 40% effective if taken up to 72 hours, which again, 3 days after unprotected vaginal sex. So this one, unlike the previous one, cannot be taken up to 5 days after and still have a chance of being effective. It's like 3 days is its effectiveness. This one is the same as the previous 2. It delays the release of an egg, but this requires 2 doses and typically requires a medication to prevent vomiting because nausea is a very common side effect with this one. And again, cannot end a pregnancy, it just helps to delay the release of the egg. The advantage for this one is it may be readily on hand for some people. The disadvantages are it requires a prescription, it must be taken in 2 doses, each 12 hours apart. So with that 3-day limit of it being effective, you would have to make sure to get it the 1st or 2nd day probably to be able to properly take it with the 12 hours in between each pill. Nausea and vomiting, again, are very common side effects, and it cannot be used by people who cannot / should not take estrogen. But yeah, those are all 4 kinds. If I were to suggest one, it would be the copper IUD because it is the most effective, and obviously I want you guys to be safe and, you know, happy and not have to deal with any unwanted pregnancies because that really does suck. I hope this video was helpful. Like I said before, there are extra informations, extra links, etc. in the description box that I really hope you guys take the time to go and read because, in case you didn't figure it out by now, I don't put every single bit of information in these videos. These videos are to give you the basics and to give you a start to do your own research or your own, like, delve into this kind of information. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I helped at least one of you learn something new, and I will see you next week. Bye.